Mobile One.
Working on a Dodge Journey, it could be any number of cars that uses Bosch injectors or anything similar. So this is the fuel rail. I've pulled it up out of there. I blew everything out with compressed air before pulling it out so I don't knock dirt and debris and junk into the intake. This particular one is for injector number 1. Look at this, I can see it's got a brown wire with a white stripe. This one's got a brown wire with a white stripe, brown wire, brown wire. So the common wire that everything has is 12 volts positive. So if it's the same color on all of these, it's on the same branch. They all have power all the time. The computer, PCM, powertrain control module, sends a signal of ground to them. So I can see the connector buckle right here is by the common wire. So that's going to be the positive one. And then whatever wire else is going to be supplied with ground. So I have a power probe and I'm going to send power and ground. This is already pressurized and I have to unpressurize it, and there's a couple ways to do that. Before you tear everything down, you can pull the fuel pump relay, it'll run out of gas. That's the easy, clean way to do it, but if you really want to test an injector and see that it's completely failed, as this one is, I got a P0201 and a P0301. 301 means misfire on cylinder number 1. You look at the line of the valve cover, and this one's further back than this one. This one's farther to the front, so cylinder 1's going to be on this right here. So this is the injector that we want to do. Because it's flopped, it's going to be this one. Let's show you what that looks like testing it. Plugs just have 2 wires just like that, one by the buckle and one away from it. We're all set up. This is the injector that I think is bad, so I'm going to hook this up to ground. So I've got ground hooked up. When you hear this, you know I'm sending power. So it doesn't squirt, it doesn't do anything. When I do the same thing to its next door neighbor, I hook up ground, and then I'm going to send power to the one here. Watch what happens. I knew that some of you are going to be expecting that. I'm using circuit protection on this power probe. I've got a link in the description where you can find one. It's one of the safer ways to do things. Your PCM is at risk. You know, your 5 volt reference stuff, you don't want to run 12 volts to that. But by and large, this is a safer way to do it. And that being said, this is definitely something you do at your own risk with good judgment, or don't do it at all. See how I get that nice mist of fuel? So you can cycle the key and get the fuel pump to do the 30-second run up or 15-second run up or whatever. But see, all of these are good, but when I do the exact same thing to this guy, guess what it does? A whole lot of nothing. So I know that that injector is for shitsold, and that's a quick test how you can check this. I'm going to let the rest of this pressure out of this by doing this. That way I'll be able to pull the injector out and it won't be under pressure. There you go, no more pressure, I can pull the injector out. We use a lot of lubricant whenever you change these out. So I'm going to just pull this clip back, give it a little circular wiggle. If you pull hard on these, in fact I'm going to get going with the silicone sprayer right away. It's a lubricant, not a glue. There's different kinds of silicone, right? We know this is the advanced class. So I spray it, and that way when I get to it, it'll hit that and just want to go. If you just yank these out, sometimes you can break them off. And not that I've ever done that, but yeah, I've totally done that. Notice that I've got safety glasses on. Ta-da! Out with the old, squirt, 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 in with the new. And you'll see these are all aligned so that the electrical connector, see how easy that is if you use the right stuff? It's awesome. You can use Windex, you can use spray silicone, which I really like. Spray silicone's somewhat flammable and it doesn't really get in the way or make it run rough at first when you're using Windex. All my holes are already cleaned out. So this had some funky spark plugs. You've got to see these spark plugs. They are messed up. Can you guys help me think of a name for these stupid things? These red safety tabs, paranoia tabs or something, they break. I was pulling one of those out, it went to fall down the intake, but because I had these blue paper towels in place, guess what? I was fine. Nothing happened. Drop my bolts in here. And bear in mind, when you put fuel injectors in, you want to wiggle them down like I did. If you force them down by the bolts, you're going to break something. You're asking for karma to just kick you right in the butt. So I just put them down gently, gingerly, if you will. That's a ginger joke. Give them a scoop them by hand, make sure that we're not going to break the bolt off, but it's not got anything left to give. See, I'm like limiting my torque by grabbing it by the middle. And that's done. Go back through. Let's start plugging things in like we mean it. Push by where the wire goes in and then clip the buckle and repeat. You know what I could have done is test that injector in the same stroke. Oh my gosh, do you realize what I forgot to do? Somebody should have been getting after me on that. I almost didn't put the clip on.
Feel the power of double checking. Hallelujah. If you're worried about remembering everything, just remember you don't have to remember the first time, but you do have to remember before you're done.
That's why it's good to be clean and organized so that if something's going on like that, you can catch it. This stuff's fun. I love doing this stuff. I can do it in my sleep. Been doing it for so long. Well, I'm happy to find a bad injector and be able to verify it and be able to teach you guys the same method. This is kind of fun. It's like one of those little easy parts of a video game where it says bop, 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 bop. Don't forget this little guy back up under here.
Another thing that's worth noting is you see how I support my weight on my elbows? I'll go from one elbow to the other elbow. That helps save your back over time.
The rest of this is just easy peasy. I'm going to show you those spark plugs. Have a gander at these little beauties. They've got the standard browning on the ceramic. You know that they've been used. These really get interesting when you look at them up close. What I should be doing is getting a spark gap gauge and just checking to see what they are. I'm going to zoom in these real close. See, this is kind of normal, what you'd expect. These have really long ground straps and the gap's big but not that big. Because these are platinum, they maintain their gap pretty well, but you can see a little bit of a curve, you know, like instead of being flat on the bottom of the ground strap, you can see it's kind of cupped. So this one's a little worn out. The one that was on cylinder 1 is this guy right here, and you can see it's just jacked. I don't know how that happened. Because it's so long, it could be prone to having a heat deformation. Maybe it got glowing red and just kind of leaned over when they hit the brakes. I don't know. But this was the one that was on cylinder number 1. Again, you can see that cupping showing that it's worn out. So I'm like, yeah, I can see that causing a misfire. And then the one that was right next to it was this one. This was cylinder number 3, back row under the intake manifold. You see how that's standing up way high? Just to compare to the first one, which is kind of what you'd expect. Look at the difference in the gap there. If I invert it and just kind of line it up, you see it's just grossly exaggerated. So sometimes when you have a misfire on a cylinder next to the one that's calling for it, that's the thing. Normal. This one's leaning a little bit. It's a little bit off center. This one's a little bit to the right, just a little off center. This guy also. Just a whole bunch of these are like that. I also noticed this one's centered, this one's normal, but it kind of got this gray weird garbage on it. It's not happy. It needed to be replaced. Another thing I noticed is that this part of it was really long. The ceramic's a little bit longer, so that let me get a normal one, I'll show you what I mean. So just to compare where your socket interfaces with it, if I line them up so it's even across here, you can see this one has a lot deeper dwell in there. Threads are about the same, a little bit longer, but you can see the top's a lot longer. So when you go to use your spark plug socket, it doesn't want to get on it all the way. You have to have your extension backed off so where it's just barely tagging into it. These are a screwy little spark plug.
Bonus footage at the end.
I think it's pretty.
By the way, we learned fun stuff here. The tires that you see here and the tires that you see kicking butt pretty much everywhere I was introduced to by the guy on the left. This is Matt Myrick from Busted Knuckle. He says 37-inch or better, BF Goodrich, AT, whatever it is, these guys. These are the tires to use. I don't owe them nothing, but you watch what they do for him and for other people. They just freaking stick like crazy. So now you're in the know. You're welcome. Let's do one more. Let's do a UTV. It's like watching a spider. They just stick.